Hey everybody, it's Becky from Stub Group. I'm here with John and Will, and we're happy to jump into your feed today to talk about all things PPC, Google, Meta, Instagram, and all the other things that are super important when it comes to your digital advertising for your business. So today I was lucky enough to talk with the guys about a topic that I think is super interesting, and that is the use of AI in how we build out different types of PPC campaigns. As an old school writer, I'm not a super big fan of AI, and both the guys know that, so they're used to me kind of pushing back on how often we use it here at Stub Group. But recently there was a new article that has come out on Search Engine Land, and it was about how to use ChatGPT to boost your PPC efforts. And super interesting, super cool article, as are most of the articles on Search Engine Land. But I thought it might be cool for us to kind of go through some of the recommendations that they have when considering using ChatGPT for your PPC campaigns, and kind of talk through what we think about that recommendation, how it works for us, and maybe other things that we do in lieu of using AI as well, because of course, like I said, I'd rather push back on that a little bit. One of the first things that they're talking about in the article, guys, is product research. So they're just basically saying, sometimes it's challenging to do research on different products, and using ChatGPT to help you with that research can kind of speed up the process. So, Will, why don't you fill us in on something that you might normally do when it comes to product research, and if you think that using ChatGPT can help, or maybe even just catapult that process for you.
When doing product research or trying to craft ad copy based on a certain product that a client has, if I'm not familiar with it, or if I'm looking to find creative ways to incorporate that into ad copy, typically I'm looking at competitors, I'm looking at other ad copy that they're running, trying to research the product itself. But ChatGPT and other AI options can help you think outside the box and take a more holistic look at it. So I would agree with Search Engine Land on this specific use case, and looking for creative ways to expand the scope of your knowledge on a specific product, and how to most effectively incorporate that in ad copy so that it makes the most sense for your ideal customer and your target audience, and how you're crafting that with the product ads.
Yeah, and I definitely would agree with that. One thing I like to tell clients often is, look, you are the expert about your business and your industry. Stub Group is the expert when it comes to the advertising channels and how to connect with the right customers at the right time with the right messaging. And so we try and learn as much as we can from the client as the expert about, okay, what are your unique selling propositions? How does your product and service work? What is unique about you? What are the pain points of your customers, et cetera? And so that's usually a great foundation for us understanding how to advertise that product or service. And then, like Will said, we do competitor research. We see what other messaging our competitors are using in their ads and their landing pages. We see what is the client saying themselves on their website and landing pages and past advertising campaigns, things like that. And then ChatGPT is a great add-on as well to sometimes even come up with new ideas that the client might not even have thought of in terms of applications, and be like, hey, here's an idea about how people might be interested in using your service, and that can be a great way to spark new ideas for new keywords to go after, or new kind of campaigns or even use cases for products to go after. So I've found it to be very helpful as kind of an idea generation tool, as well as an explanation of some of those use cases for different types of products and services.
To John's point, I had a conversation with a client yesterday about this very thing, where ChatGPT and other AI interfaces were not a good solution, and their use case was their product in the common vernacular in different parts of the country is called something completely different. So in the South and the Midwest, they call it one thing. In the North or other parts of the US, they call it something completely different. That's not even something they had on their website. It's not something that we were able to find through keyword research, because it's just a common knowledge thing that their customer base would use based on where they're at. And so, to John's point, it's really important that you have your customers interfacing with you on that, getting that feedback, so you understand how to get that feedback from them and how to best craft ad copy. and also how to interpret that into keyword research and what terms need to be targeted.
Yeah, that's a really great point. If you got hoagies versus sandwiches versus heroes versus subs, you gotta know what your target audience is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the second to last sentence in this paragraph on the article says this research method requires critical thinking. And I think that that's like one of the most important things to remember whenever you are using ChatGPT or any other AI to help you with anything that you're doing in business. I know both of you mentioned copywriting quite a bit in that conversation. That's actually the second thing that Search Engine Land is recommending using ChatGPT for when you're using it for PPC is helping you create more headlines. So I know we've done that a little bit with some clients. Do both of you want to give me a little breakdown on how that's helped you?
Yeah, I can do that first. I'd say for me, it's a great idea generation tool. Most of the time, I'm probably not going to end up exactly using what it spit out, but it will help me think about things from different angles. So I might say, hey, here's copy in the text from a client's landing page. Here's what they do. Write me 10 headlines for Google Ads that communicate either different aspects of the offer or whatever. Give it different prompts. I have definitely seen situations where it came up with something that I would not have thought of on my own. Like, oh yeah, that's a really cool way to think about it. Again, you've got to apply that critical thinking. You're not usually going to come up with perfect headlines out of that, and it's not always great at even abiding by the character limits that you give it. But it's an awesome tool and assistant for helping you think about things a little more creatively.
One thing I've found helpful in some situations is to help me put myself in the customer base's shoes and view it from their perspectives, because sometimes I may not be in the target audience, so I need to redirect how I'm thinking about it, reframe that. And oftentimes the business owner is also thinking from a different perspective, and so even though they're providing a service or a product, they're stuck in a certain mindset, and the feedback they have may not match up 100% with the way their customer is thinking about how they want to use this or the terms. And so for ChatGPT, for instance, I might give a description like, hey, I am this type of person needing this type of service. How do I look for these types of things? Give me, based on this information, give me 10 recommendations for headlines that would address this pain point or something like that. And it may not be 100% perfect, but it helps kind of think through those things and think critically, like we've mentioned already, on how to present that accurately.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Especially I see this with some of our more technically oriented clients, where they think about things from a particular phrase, a particular name of, okay, this is the technical word for this service that we do, but that's not necessarily how people search for it. They're searching for maybe the problem that this solves. And so ChatGPT, like you said, is a great way of trying to get into the mindset of the searcher. And I've seen situations too where it's helped us go to the client and say, you know what, let's tweak the messaging on your website and landing pages too, because what you're saying right now isn't really how people think about your product and search for your product. And so the terminology you're using is not resonating with them.
Yeah, no, one thing I was going to add to John's point, a lot of times business owners they don't disagree with that, but they'll just assume it. So the reason they don't have the information on their landing page is because, well, of course that's how it works, or of course this is that information, but they don't understand the importance of incorporating that information for not just PPC, but SEO and other things as well that impacts. And so it can be important to say like, hey, you know that, and now I know that. But in order to work within the system and the way that it's been created, we need to incorporate that on the page. So that's a really helpful point.
Yeah, and I was just going to say on the opposite side of things, from a copywriting standpoint, the one thing that I struggle with when I do use ChatGPT for that is finding that balance between the very technical sounding type of copywriting and the casual. I find like it's either like, hey, yo, man, what's up? Or it's like the technical answer to this is blah, 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 blah. And so prompts, it's all about prompts, right? That's what you were saying, Will, before, and I think it's super important. I do still struggle to find, I think it's probably because I'm looking for my own voice, because I am a writer, right? So I am looking for that voice that I have. So a lot of times I'll end up modifying what they've written. And again, it's just like John said, it's a good guide for what you might want to have out there in the world for everybody to see. I know you guys were talking about copywriting, but also kind of leaning into a little bit of keyword information when we were talking about what people were searching for. That's the other thing that that is mentioned as the third topic in this article is keyword research. So when you're looking for long tail keyword variations and things like that, saying how ChatGPT can help with that. Have you guys found that to be useful as well?
Yeah, I've used it for that use case in some scenarios. Kind of the same thing that we've talked about as far as product research or headline research. The same kind of thing where putting myself in the position of the customer, trying to think through what are the types of things they're going to be searching. So whether that's having AI look at a specific page and say, okay, how do we get to this page? What are important keywords that we'd want to target that would be relevant to this page? And kind of shortcutting some of that busy work that you may have. Also looking for not just synonyms of specific keywords, but like Becky mentioned, long tail keywords. How does this work in a sentence? How does this work based on what someone's actually going to search? If it's a service, how does that match up to where they're at specifically, and other things like that. So it can help you kind of come at that holistically from a full floor perspective.
Yeah, I like using it to kind of fill in some of those gaps, like you mentioned, to get to that holistic side of things. So some of the common things that we'll do as part of keyword research is, of course, looking at landing pages and client's website to see what is on there, what's being referred to. We'll use different third-party competitor tools that we have to look and see what keywords are their competitors targeting, which ones appear to be working well, things like that. Of course, we'll use Google's own keyword research tools to come up with ideas and also get a sense for volume projections, which keywords are being searched more often, what's the competition level for different types of keywords, things like that. And then ChatGPT can be great at kind of filling in some of those gaps and prompting ideas that we missed or that weren't, an option as part of some of those other core keyword research approaches that we like to take.
Yeah, and it's funny because the last suggestion in the article, I think, is really the one we probably should have talked about first, because we're talking about how we're targeting particular people and what words we're going to use to target them and what they're searching for. But the last thing that's recommended using ChatGPT for is actually finding out who your audience is. So what are the three personas of people who are looking to buy a home, for example, and using ChatGPT as that research assistant to give you an idea of honestly the prompts that you're probably going to use in the next part of the process, right? So I think that that's one thing that people sometimes forget, that it's not only a service that's going to be writing things and telling you things that you can say, do, things like that, but also can provide really substantial information on the market as well. So have you guys used that for any kind of audience research yet, or is that something a little bit different?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've used, especially for really nuanced businesses or B2B, where you need to be extremely targeted. It's not something that's relevant for a large customer base. We've talked about this a little bit related to the other use cases of AI, whether it's keyword research, ad copy, things like that. It's important to remember that AI, despite what a lot of people might think, is not a perfect system, and it's not all-knowing. It's 100% dependent on the prompts that you give it, on the questions that you ask, and the answers you get will be dependent on how you phrase a question. It can't read your mind, and so it can be helpful to potentially have this conversation with an AI or ChatGPT and keep it all in the same thread, so to speak, so they can learn based on the prompts that you're giving it, starting with persona research and then target customer information, competitor research, keyword research, ad copy, and making sure that you're feeding it the correct information. Because if you assume something and ask it a question that may not actually be accurate, whether that's to the customer base or something different, is going to spit out information that's going to be adjusted by that. And so with that in mind, related to these things, we want to think critically, like we've already talked about, because I have seen a lot of instances where people have copy and pasted information from ChatGPT or AI and use that as their ad copy or their keyword list and things like that. And the problem is that whole list, it may have been 20 completely independent, unique headlines or something else, but it was all based on that first question they asked or that first prompt. And maybe one of those would have been good to use, but when you're trying to think, how do I insert this into a responsive search ad or performance max headline, you need a variety that wasn't present in that list that the AI spit out for you. And so we want to make sure that we're using it as a tool, but then going back and looking at it from the human perspective and recognizing how does this work in the context of Google or Meta or what other platform you're using it with, and making sure you're using your expertise to make it work for your business, for your client.
And one fun tidbit to be on the lookout for is they announced during Google Marketing Live earlier this year that they are going to be incorporating their version of ChatGPT, which is Bard, into the actual ad creation process within the Google Ads interface, so that you can leverage their generative AI to come up with headline ideas, description ideas, as kind of like a chatbot experience. So we'll see how that works. I have mixed thoughts on whether that will be good or not in terms of the ad output that we're going to see, but definitely something that we'll be testing out once that releases.
And I think that from coming from us here at Stub Group, the one thing that's super important to remember about ChatGPT is that they're not always thinking from a Google compliance standpoint, right? So some of those keywords, some of those phrases that we're using might not be something that Google likes as a whole, right, John?
Absolutely. Yep. Google has very specific policies and what they can and can't say, and ChatGPT does not follow them. Frankly, Google doesn't follow them themselves sometimes when they recommend headlines to you when you build ads. So just because Google said to do this doesn't mean it's actually going to fly. So yeah, keep that in mind as you write ads.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation today, guys. I always love learning about new things from both of you. I'm still not convinced that I want to use ChatGPT all the time, but you're softening me up on it for sure. So thanks everybody for coming and watching us today, listening in on what we have to say about all things PPC. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be happy to keep putting out all sorts of great content for you. Thanks so much.
Hey, do you want to dominate Google Ads and grow your business? Subscribe to this channel and we'll help you learn how. You see, we've made almost $500 million for our clients from Google Ads. In fact, according to Google, Stub Group is one of the best performing Google partners in the world. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like the one you just watched, and learn how to dominate Google Ads, increase profits, and grow your business too. And check out the description below for your own free Google Ads profit plan, customized for your business. Thanks.